Welcome to 100 Stories, the Narrative Intelligence Project. I'm your host, Paige Williams. This series explores a question at the center of how we become who we are. How malleable are the stories we live by? And what does it take to actually change one? Across 100 conversations, I'm speaking with thinkers, creators, researchers, leaders, healers, and peoples whose lives have been shaped by profound change. Together, we're examining the stories we inherit, the stories that become identity, and the human capacities that allow us to see, question, and transform stories. These conversations are helping shape the emerging field of narrative intelligence and the foundational book that I'm writing about it. This is 100 Stories. Today I'm speaking with Ann Shoket. She is the CEO and owner of Li.st and founder of 10 Minutes to Togetherness. Ann's work explores power and success for women and the next generation. I invited Ann to 100 Stories because she connects women leaders and cares very deeply about how community transforms opportunity. Welcome, Ann. It's so nice to have you here today.
I'm so glad to be here.
I would love for you to tell me about the work and experiences that have most shape how you see yourself and the world. So just starting light, just a light question.
I really see my career and the stories I tell about my career as an evolution. And the moment I'm sitting in now, I am CEO and owner of a community, the Li.st, of high impact leaders and non-binary and women who are devoted to helping each other succeed. And there's a really important story about how I got to this moment. I acquired the business. I was a member for 5 years before I acquired the business. I acquired the business in the middle of the pandemic when we were all staring at each other with our eyes rolling in our heads, imagining our careers like dribbling out between our fingers. And I knew how much I admired and adored and depended on this community. And when the founders decided that they were done and wanted to move on, I was like, great, I've got this. This is what I know to do, and this is what we need right now. But I came to this feeling about community and the importance of community, not because it's natural to me. I am a Gen X woman, and we did not have strong community. I had to learn it from the millennial women who grew up with me when I was editor-in-chief of 17 magazine. And then I wrote a book, The Big Life, right here. And The Big Life is about how that generation of young women really started to redefine what power and success looked like. And I learned about community building by having series of dinners at my kitchen table with amazing millennial women, and it was a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and they taught me the importance of peer communities, not just top-down mentorship, right? Like really, like what can you learn from your friends? And it goes back even further, this community feeling. When I was at 17, I used to imagine that I would sit in my office, and like a gorgeous office, overlooking the Hudson River, my feet propped on the desk, proper, major magazine kind of stereotype that you imagined. I was literally living that experience. But I would imagine that I could fit all of our readers of 17 magazine in one high school gym together, that they were a community of young women who were trying to figure out life together. So there's all these touch points in our storytelling. And so whether I'm telling the story forwards from the time that I was a young journalist and launching a website in the East Village in my 350 square foot apartment with one sink that I brushed my teeth in and washed my dishes in, or if I'm telling the story from where I'm sitting now in my home office, the story changes, whether I'm going forwards or backwards or starting in the middle, or who I'm talking to, right? If I'm talking to you, Paige Williams, amazing author and coach and thought leader, or I'm talking to someone from the next generation who is looking to me as a roadmap, or if I'm talking to our community and we're all going through this together, it changes. All of those stories are like little diamonds, and they have so many facets to them depending on who's looking at it. It's a kaleidoscope.
It's so important for stories to change and to flow with that change.
Because you want to have a different impact on the person that you're telling the story to. Who cares about my story? How can my story help you? You and I just talked about our kids before we started this call, and I wanted to hear, how was your summer going offline? And to connect and hear about what's most important to you right now. I had a call last night with some next generation talent, and they're sitting in a moment of tremendous anxiety about how are they going to get a job? How are they going to use these brilliant brains that they've been cultivating for so long? How are they going to find partners? How are they, like the big giant ball of what ifs? And my story was different when I was talking to them. I was telling them, I started with the story about, my 350 square foot apartment on the Lower East Side with one sink, and how I launched a website and paid my writers in 3-bean chili in my backyard. So it's all about the impact that you want to have on the person who's listening. I don't care. I don't care what my story is. Now, I know you're going to ask me, well, I suspect you're going to ask me, like the stories we tell ourselves, which I'm very excited to talk about too.
Go ahead. What do you want to tell us about it?
You know me, I'm a journalist and a moderator, and I'm always thinking one step ahead. I never want to answer the questions. I only ever really want to ask them.
Same.
But I do think that the stories we tell ourselves are really important to pay attention to, and that we're not necessarily aware of the stories we tell ourselves about what success should look like, about what we should be doing at this stage in our life, about like literally I'm sitting here listing all the things that I should be doing as opposed to the things I am doing, and I had to really separate those two. And every once in a while I have to give myself a little update on, like, tell yourself that you are amazing and that you are in the right moment, and that all the bumps in the road are to be expected, rather than like sitting in the pothole that I bumped into and like wallowing in it and feeling like I'm never going to dig my way out of this. You need to adjust your own internal monologue and the stories you tell yourself about yourself.
When you catch yourself and you're like, this is one of those moments when maybe I could change my lens and see it differently. What does it take to get to that moment to change your narrative? Even the realization that maybe the narrative needs to shift in order to, as my friend Reagan Walsh says, shed the should.
Oh yeah, shed the should. That's good. Oh
yeah, she's great. For me, it often takes pain or discomfort to get to that moment of being like, maybe I need to shift my lens.
I think it takes time. I don't know if you can do it when you're in it.
Right.
Especially because we're like so set on setting goals, achieving them, like seeing obstacles and move around this way, and then like all of a sudden you've been like working around obstacles, or not, things are not materializing the way you want them to, and then maybe you keep going, right? You keep going down this path that isn't really working for you. And I think it takes time to look back and say, okay, the story I'm telling myself about how important this thing is to me, or how this is the thing that's going to be the right move, maybe this is the wrong story. I do a lot of listening to other people who say, this is the thing you should do, and this is the thing you should do. And I have a hard time hearing those things, because sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. But then every once in a while, you need a little space and say, okay, wait, maybe I need to go back and listen differently. Not see that thing as doubt or negativity, but see it as guidance and caretaking. I think it takes time to shift your perspective. It's time.
100%. That is so insightful. I've realized lately that, and I mean, when you come to understand something about yourself, you're like, of course, like, why didn't I see this? Because it takes time. But I'm really seeing in my life that I love to jump to the end. Yes. Because I want to know the outcome, right? And I want to control it. One of my spiritual advisors is always like, but you're going to miss out on the middle, and that's where the gold is.
That's where the hard part is.
Yeah. That's where the stressing and learning is.
Whenever I'm doing my own kind of spiritual reconnecting with myself, and that kind of, I ask myself, if I had a magic wand, what would I change about this moment? And I always say that I want surety, that I want to know the outcome, that I want to know that this works and this is going to be worth it. And of course you can't. Right? But that's what I want. I want to know. I want to know is it going to work? Is this all worth it?
We have a desire for surety, you and I think we are similar in that, just hearing your story about that. And we're also storytellers. So how does story and meaning making help us in that journey to surety? Are we using it as a tool to say, oh, here's why I experienced what I experienced?
I think it's affirmation. that you can't continue down a hard, complicated path without having some bright spots. And sometimes you have to make those bright spots for yourself, right? That you have to say, even if you say to yourself, this is a sign. This is a sign that the universe has my back in this moment, right? That's us telling ourselves a story that all is going to be well. But we need that. Whether or not the universe is actually sending us a sign, that's for everybody in their own individual journey. But we need to know that we need those signs. We need to look for the signs. One of the things that I think is so important about storytelling is listening to other people's stories about themselves and looking for the places where you are affirming your own story and looking for the places where their story diverges from what you think is possible for yourself or for someone else. And those are the moments that are really like sticky, that I think are really worth paying attention to. We can high-five ourselves and tell ourselves we're doing the right thing all the time. And then we can be hard on ourselves all the time. But we have to, the path forward is learning from other people's stories that they tell themselves and where they think they're doing great and where they think they're stuck. You might have an answer for someone else on ways in which they're stuck, and they might have an answer for you because they don't see it as stuck. They see it as an evolution. They see it as part of the process. They see it as a reason to celebrate. Let me tell you about 10 minutes to togetherness.
Please.
So after the pandemic, there was a lot of focus on the loneliness epidemic that we were all wallowing in. And it wasn't caused by the pandemic. It wasn't caused by technology. It was caused by a series of factors that have divided and isolated us. But I was very curious about the ways this loneliness epidemic that the U.S. Surgeon General said is as damaging to your health and well-being as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, as damaging to your life as opioid addiction. I was very curious about how does this impact women in the workplace. So we did some research. 80% of women, 80% of everybody says they are lonely because of their job. Not at their job, because of their job. And that loneliness spills into other places in their lives. For women, the loneliness feels like isolation and overwhelm and lack of support. For men, it feels like a lack of respect from the people that they report to and the people that report into them. The solution to this loneliness is togetherness. Sounds easy to say, right? But we have really atrophied those muscles to make the connection. And that's where 10 minutes come in. This is from the U.S. Surgeon General's report. This is not me. If we all spent 10 minutes a day intentionally building our networks of support, we would take this 20-year decline in time spent together and cut it in half. And so we launched a campaign, 10 minutes to togetherness. I wear a little bracelet, it says togetherness. I wear a little bracelet that reminds me to do my 10 minutes a day. I send a text, I send an email, I send a LinkedIn. It's very low lift. And it says, hey, you've been on my mind. I've been thinking of you. That thing you said to me 3 weeks ago is still on my mind. I just want you to know I'm still noodling on it. It says, you did a great job in that meeting the other day. I just want you to know I see you. It's some little thing, not to my best friends. Yes, to my best friends sometimes, but to people who I just want them to know I see them, who I want to keep the relationship warm, who I want to have on my team and I want to be on their team. And so to make this low lift, you know that you have a team there. You're reaching out to them. They know that you're on their team too. They're going to reach out to you when they need you. It's like so much better. Imagine every time you wanted to reach out to someone. Hey, dear Jen, it's been a really long time since we got together. The last time we talked, and then you have to spend the whole time reminding them before you even get to the thing that says, please, can we be in touch, or can I call you in on something? If you've got this warm relationship, bing, 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 then it's so much easier. Paige, I got a thing. Can you help me on this? It's just there for you. So 10 minutes to togetherness is this initiative for everyone to build their network of support.
You are a journalist, an author, the CEO and owner of the Li.st, which is a community for successful, aspiring women. And you bring people together with 10 minutes to togetherness. What story do you tell that set you up to be the person who tells stories and brings people together and leads community? What made you be that person, go that direction?
It's really lonely in the world, particularly if you're ambitious, particularly if you want to achieve. I have always wanted partnership. I think that's the Gemini in me. That's what I tell the next generation when we're talking about we're getting a little astro woo-woo. I have always wanted partnership. I'm always the person who says, come on, let's do this together. I was the social committee director of my college dorm, launched a website in 1996 when there were like 10 people launching websites, and then gathered a community of New York City downtown artists and creatives to come together. When I was in the magazine business, I was like the team builder. I would go to I was the person who went to every party, brought along a +1. It has been part of my whole DNA to be a gatherer. I didn't realize it was a thing you could do until way later in my life, like that community builder was a thing. How about this for a great story? I don't tell this one very often. Early in my career, I was up for a job at, oh my God, I'm going to date myself, at AOL. And AOL was the hottest thing at the time. And I was up to run their teen community. And I really wanted this job. Like, I was desperately bored in my job and I wanted this job. And I remember at the interview, the woman turned me down and she said, I don't think you really love community. And I was like, so wounded. And I realized, looking back, now that I'm telling you this story all these years later, that I didn't love wide open chat rooms where everybody was like, you know, yelling at each other, insulting each other, piling on XYZ. I wanted the connection in the community and to build something meaningful together. I don't tell that story very often, but it's one of those stories that I tell myself. Like, I don't want your AOL kind of community in these cavernous chat rooms. I want to see my people. I want to be aligned. I want to amplify our power together.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned DNA, and I was going to ask you, so you think you just came out of the womb like gathering people, or was it also learned from your childhood? Did you grow up in a home of a gatherer? Or was it a feeling of like, I didn't feel that, and so therefore I am going to feel this need or this call? It's a calling.
Always felt that if I wanted to gather people, I had to be the gatherer. And I don't know if I saw that in my parents, but my parents are very curious about other people. My dad will have endless conversations with the person at the front desk at the office building. He'll at the restaurant, right? He's just curious and interested about people. My mom's a therapist. Not that she's like actively running around, but she has a broad openness and understanding of human beings. And so I think that my desire to build community came from a real sense of curiosity about people, and also an adventurousness. I see people as a door to a new experience that I haven't had yet, as an understanding of what have they lived that I haven't experienced. And I'm always so curious about that. So that's what's in my DNA. That was part of my growing up. Not the gathering necessarily, but the curiosity.
Yeah, and you said openness. Like growing up with parents who are curious and open, whoa. That creates a certain type of person, I would imagine. That's beautiful.
Do you feel like you are the same person now that you were when you were 8?
I identify when you talk about loneliness. I think that I felt deeply lonely as a child. as many of us do. And I was always playing and creating by myself. My mother was an interior decorator in Mississippi, and she would take me to like fabric stores, and we'd pick, picking out, she's meticulous perfectionist, picking out the fabric, looking at the colors. And in her creativity, I was like on my own, playing, trying to, keep my mind out of boredom and just creating worlds and stories. And I love to play with others, but I found myself that I because of the nature of her work, I played a lot alone. I identified also with what you said about we're always evolving. And the times in my life where I haven't evolved when is probably the deepest, loneliest times of my life.
Yeah.
And it's actually when I can say, get curious about other people and say, what's going on with you, that I feel the most connected and the least lonely.
I think that's right. I think that drive to understand other people is what helps you understand yourself. I think that's right.
Yeah.
You really put your finger on it there. Absolutely.
Thanks. I think I'm so interested in building the field of narrative intelligence because the stories I've told myself have kept me from connection, have kept me in loneliness. And so I had to unlearn stories and tell stories in order to connect.
One of the questions I ask people when they feel stuck is, what did the 16-year-old you really want most out of life? And what would they think of where you are now? What would your 16-year-old self think about you now?
She'd be very pleased and like, thank God it took you long enough to get there. Professionally, I started as a documentary filmmaker. I still make documentaries occasionally when something really interests me, but maybe one every couple of years. And so I like to be behind the camera, but my soul longed to be in front of the camera. And I had to go through a lot of transformation work to come out from behind the camera and be with you. And the joy of my soul now is taking that leap of faith and saying, I don't have to be behind the camera. It's okay. I can still be me and be authentically me and actually be all of myself by just accepting my seat in front of the camera. And I can't tell you how much it took for me to say yes to being that kind of leader. It took a lot.
Back to our conversation about finding points of affirmation along the way. If you didn't find signs that said, Paige, you got this, that you can do this, like that feels good, and someone else says you look good doing that, like those are the signs along your journey that you have to set your antenna to look for. But I think that's the affirmation along the journey to surety that says, like, Paige, come on, you got this.
Totally. I'm so grateful for the people who were put in my path to say, absolutely, you should do that. You're born for that. What are you talking about?
Right. And if you didn't have that, it would be very dispiriting, right? It would be very quiet and lonely and
it'd be very different. Yeah. And I think, for women, like women in the list, we're successful in whatever we do, really, because we're smart and we know how to do it. And we're of a generation that, we were out like all hours drinking from the water hose, not inside, learning community on the street because, that's our generation. I deal with this a lot in coaching women like us. Because we're good at something, we assume it's okay for us and that's where we should be. But our story evolves. And our soul wants something new, and we're like, oh, not sure I'll be good at that, even though it's what's calling me.
I've been thinking about flow and what it means to be in your flow and how to follow the flow. And this year, 5 years of being an entrepreneur, which I did not expect in my journey, right? I grew up in a traditional corporate hierarchy in the media business. I didn't see entrepreneurship on my bingo card, but this year, 5 years into my journey, I feel like I'm in my flow. And I feel like I have the right people around me, the right ideas around me. Opportunities are coming my way, and I have had to promise myself, I've had to quiet the voice that says, this is not enough, you have more, there's more, or try over here, or go over there, right? All the distractions, and to really focus on honoring that flow. And that's a story I am continuing to tell myself. And some negative stories that say, you need to achieve more, be more, do more. and go this way, and somebody's going to like it better, if someone's going to like you better if you go over this way. And I need to say, no, I'm in, like, this is making me happy. This feels right for me. This is the flow. That's the other, I'm not wearing it now, but that's the other bracelet I wear that says flow.
That's so good. Yes. Yes, because there's so much opportunity. There's so many things we could do. But it's
And
like,
there's so much noise in
wow.
here that
Yeah.
says no one will love you unless you make more money. That no one will love you unless you have X number of followers on Instagram. Like, we have all of these negative stories that we have to stop listening to as well.
What do you do to be able to say no to that? And some of it's curiosity, right? Like some of it's like, well, that sounds interesting. Like that sounds like a good opportunity. Oh, I could go over here and do that. I could go over here and do this. What do you do to decide what is actually aligned action to keep you in flow? Like, how do you stay the course and know it's the course that's right for you?
I check with my people, my amazing beloved husband who wants me to succeed and wants me to be happy, and also has a perspective on, like, that I don't always see on what's making me feel successful and making me feel happy. I'm so grateful to have my mom still alive and, like, checking in with her. And she would never say, and I'm shocked that a lot of people have this relationship with their mother. She would never say, that doesn't sound right. She would just give me a or like there's a little in there. She's not, I was like, wait, you don't like that? Two closest girlfriends from college live within 10 blocks of me. We were roommates in college, and we all live 10 blocks away from each other now. And sometimes it's just a walk. And to hear their feedback. And also, they're like, that sounds great. Or like, holy cow, that sounds amazing, right? They've got my back. So I'm looking to my closest people as mirrors and to reflect back whether this feels right also.
Yeah, that's awesome. Before we pushed record, we were talking about the different generations, and that last night you had an opportunity to meet with Gen Z. So what do you see in the differences in the generations, and what story do we all still carry that's similar, and how does that story differentiate according to generation? It's a big question.
My favorite thing about the list is watching the ways in which women and non-binary leaders are leading their lives in fascinating, pioneering ways, their lives and their careers. And they're not sitting there saying, like, well, I'm leading my life in this fascinating way. They're just leading their lives and asking for support and intel and counsel along the way. And it's a feeling I had when I first joined the community 10 years ago, where I thought to myself, oh my God, I had no idea that women were sitting around having these conversations so candidly with so much support for each other. I had not seen that in my day-to-day life. And so very often when someone is feeling stuck, or there's a narrative they're telling themselves about what has to be or what should be, I'm really excited to bring them into the community so they can see the myriad of ways of possibilities, of what is possible in your life. That feeling of possibility is very intoxicating at every level. And it's a feeling that you have when you're just starting out, when you, like Gen Z women just starting out. I mean, they're mired in bad news about the economy and the state of the world. And yet they are sitting in possibility for their ability to have an impact. And that is really powerful. Millennial women, the women who grew up with me, one of my favorite cover lines when I was at 17 magazine was like, endless possibilities. Like, that is the idea that everything is possible. Not anything is possible, but every single thing you want is possible, and you have the ability to make it happen, that there is opportunity that is yours for the taking. That is what is driving millennial women, the opportunity to change the game. And so then you think about the generation of Gen Xers. I mean, look, we think we like invented the game.
We did, didn't we?
I mean, I think that too. And then ask my mom, who's like solidly.
Right.
But at every single stage, I think what connects women is the idea of possibility, that there is more to do, that there is more change, that there are more ways that we can tailor the world and our lives to work for us. And that's really powerful.
What stories about power, leadership, and belonging have you seen women begin to reject or rewrite?
The idea that success is a solo sport, done, reject it. I think that Gen X sees it that way, millennials see it that way, that Gen Z is seeing it that way, that no one gets anywhere alone. And for anyone who is still clinging to this old idea that there is one superstar, that there's room at the table for one person, they are isolated and alone and not able to move forward. That the new rules are togetherness and connection. And that's how you create belonging, when everybody has a shared goal and you're trying to make it happen together.
Yes, ma'am. And it makes me think about the masculine story of a founder in a garage by himself building the world, right? And I tried to fit that mold when I created Odd Pop, which was a creator community for filmmakers like me to be able to have a place online to submit their films and win prizes and opportunities. And there was this masculine emulation of story about what that had to look like and who you had to be in order to raise the money from venture. And that is a story that is a false narrative in my mind, especially if you're a female founder, especially.
The more we can see power in people who don't traditionally fit a mold of what power looks like, the better we are, the more power there is in the world. I would walk into coffee shops, the chick with the green hair, the one who's gathering everybody around their laptop. That is what power looks like. And it's not one solo guy commanding from on high, right? This is connection and collaboration and expanding the definition of what power looks like and acts like. And it's possibility. Everybody in. Water's warm.
Through building the list, what have you experienced or learned about the role that community plays in helping people imagine a new life or possibility?
The list is a magical place. We have the power to make books New York Times bestsellers, to make television shows #1 on Netflix, to make movies open big. But we also have the ability to help people who don't see themselves succeeding, helping them see a new way to make things possible. We are able to unlock opportunities that seem impossible because people ask, because people give, because we have a culture of gentleness and generosity, because we are devoted to helping each other succeed. And that's a big call, right? We are asking people to be devoted to help people that they don't know succeed. But that is how we're going to move the needle forward.
I love it. If you could take away a limiting story that most women, or you see a common story that is limiting, if you could just say, I just want this story to disappear from women so that they can live their fullest life, what story do you see over and over that holds us back?
I would like people to never say the words work-life balance again. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing. It's not even an aspiration. It is your work and your life and your hopes and your dreams and your ambition does not need to be in anybody else's idea of balance. Yes, we are all doing too much. And yes, you will either get it done or it won't get done. And your children will be fine, and your partner will be fine, and your business will be fine. But please stop saying work-life balance. I will tell you something else though. I used to say I didn't believe in imposter syndrome, that it creates this near-death experience for showing up in a space and not knowing, and that you need to show up with curiosity and confidence that you belong, that you're there and you belong there. However, I'm changing my stance on that. And the syndrome part still feels like we're blaming the victim, but I've really come to see that the idea of imposter syndrome is by design. That it is the system that is saying you don't belong here, and we're going to make you feel like you don't really belong here. And it's used against women and any underrepresented group. And that the feeling you have of not belonging there is not your fault. That it is the fault of the place and the system that is letting you know that. And I think to stop blaming yourself for that is the first thing. To see the system is the second. The third is to chip away at the system and to get into a position of power where you can change it.
What happened where you decided to change the narrative about imposter syndrome and how you believe?
I listened. I show up. I'm tall. I'm white. I can do some nice makeup, and I've got cute clothes to walk into any situation. And I listened very carefully to people who don't hold those privileges that I hold, and the ways in which me saying it's not a thing wasn't helping them, because they were still showing up as an underrepresented person in a place that didn't want them, that didn't want to accommodate them, that said, you got to toe our line. And the more stories I listened to, and the more I was able to peel back the onion of my own understanding. And I still, and more so, I feel like it is my job to bring everybody into the rooms with me and to make them feel like, listen, maybe they don't think you belong, but I think you belong here. That's the togetherness piece. No one has to be, you don't have to walk into the room alone. That's actually one of the things at the list. No one walks into a room alone. Whatever conference you're at that may or may not be made for you, there is someone there who's also like, great, we got this. Or after you do your terrible conference, come, let's have a drink and talk about it. That is the promise of connection and togetherness.
Beautiful. Thank you. If you were to write the definition of what narrative intelligence is, how would you define it?
To me, narrative intelligence is listening to other people's stories and thinking about how they inform your own and how they can inspire your own. It's not just about the stories we tell, it's about the stories that we listen to and that we follow and that we believe.
Awesome. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your lessons, your stories with us so that we can learn from you. And it's just such an honor and a privilege to know you truly and to be a part of your community.
It is an honor and a privilege to know you, Paige. You're the greatest.
Before we close, here's what I'm taking from this conversation about narrative intelligence. Anne reminded me that stories do not only shape us through what we tell ourselves, they also shape us through what we hear from other people, what we believe is possible, because we have seen someone else living it. And whether we have a community that reflects a larger future back to us. I'm also taking her challenge to the idea that success is a solo sport. The stories that keep us isolated can make us feel lonely. Possibility expands through connection, generosity, and people who are willing to say, you belong in this room, and you do not have to enter it alone. And perhaps narrative intelligence includes listening closely enough to let another person's story revise our own story. Anne did that when she changed her thinking about imposter syndrome. She listened to people whose experience differed from her own, recognizing the limits of her original interpretation, and allowed a more complete story to emerge. These are emerging insights, not conclusions. I'll be listening for how they deepen, change, or are challenged across the remaining stories. And now I want to invite you into the inquiry. What is your NQ? You can take the narrative quotient assessment at storykeys.co. It's free for the first 100 participants. We're about halfway through that 100, so you still have about 50 more slots to find out your own NQ. It's not a light quiz. It takes about 40 minutes, and it will teach you about your own story type, story archetype, and the limiting stories that are holding you back, as well as those that can put you into the new story that your life is evolving and writing into. Thank you so much for listening. This is 100 Stories, the Narrative Intelligence Project.